Hello, and thank you all so much for joining us for this really exciting webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how a library app improves the patron experience. I know we have a mix of people that have apps already, some librarians that are considering apps right now, so I'm sure there's a lot that's on your mind, and we've organized a really great panel today for you all to hear firsthand what some of these experiences have been like. Just so you all know who I am, my name is Megan Vizzini. I'm the head of sales and marketing at Boopsy, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping details, and then I'll introduce our great panel, and we'll get started today. So on your screens, you should see a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have a question or are having any type of technical issue, please feel free to type something there, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as possible. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation. We may be able to field some throughout. That said, we do have about 10 panel questions that we want to get through today, and I know you all are really excited to hear firsthand from everyone what's going on at their libraries or what their experiences have been. If we don't get to your questions today, we will definitely follow up and get answers to those. We'll also be using Twitter today, and the hashtag is #DemcoIdeas. You should be able to see that hashtag on the side of your screen in the chat box. Just for fun, while I'm doing introductions, we're going to pop up a poll question on your screen to help us better understand you all. And so here's the question: what types of access points do you offer to patrons on their smartphones and tablets? So go ahead and answer that poll. I'll go through the introductions, and then we'll review some of the results from that poll after. As we go throughout the presentation, there's a couple of more poll questions, so we want this to be a really engaging presentation. The last thing I want you all to do today is sit here for an hour and just be totally bored. So let's all have fun today, and with this exciting information and knowledge exchange. So now on to introductions. So you all know who I am, so let me jump right into our really awesome panel. So the first member of our panel is Kareem Adib. He's the Senior Director of Technology at Argyle Griffin Group. He has an extensive knowledge of technology use and trends in libraries. So believe this, he's been, for 10 years, he worked as the Director of Information and Technology Services at Chicago Public Library, so really large library system. As the IT Director in Chicago, Kareem's work influenced the standard for libraries and library vendors worldwide, and he was even recognized by President Obama. I mean, that's amazing. And then he became the Digital Experience Director at the Pierce County Library in Washington, which earned the coveted National Medal for Museum and Library Services Award in 2013. In his current role, Kareem uses his vast library experiences to combine best-in-class technology and marketing services with straightforward strategy, delivering an improved return on investment and better customer experiences. And next we have Evan Smale. He's the Electronic Services Librarian at Novi Public Library in Michigan. Novi, actually, excuse me. Evan manages databases, social media, and a variety of other projects, both digital and otherwise, at Novi Public Library, serving a population of roughly 56,000 patrons. He's a graduate of Wayne State University, where he received a master's in library and information sciences. He has over 8 years of experiences working in the public library sector, providing reference, readers, advisory services to a diverse community. Beyond implementing and helping design the Novi Boopsy app, Evan also assists with computer instruction as well as policy and staff development. And let's see. Now we've also got Christina Salvatore, who's the communications coordinator at Novi Public Library in Michigan as well. Christina wears many hats at the library. She spends much of her time keeping the website up to date, developing the library's e-newsletter and magazine, distributing both internal and external library promotional materials. She manages the meeting room rentals for events and programs and other marketing duties required to promote the library's programs, collections, and resources to patrons. Christina is a graduate of Madonna University, where she received a BA in journalism and public relations. Aside from work, Christina loves to spend time with her family and friends and truly enjoys life. We have a really awesome panel today. And last, but certainly not least, we have Diane Cohen here. And Cowan, I apologize, Diane. Diane is the Virtual Services Librarian at Santa Cruz Public Libraries in California. She's a 17-year veteran of Santa Cruz Public Library. She has served in various capacities, including circulation, reference, and teen programming. She has been the branch manager of both the Garfield Park and other branches. So we're so excited to have everyone here today. Diane also served in the IT department in support of the webmaster. So in her current role, she works closely with IT in managing the virtual branch and the implementation of the library's digital initiatives and services. She's also responsible for the library's social media presence and serves on the marketing team in various capacities, including graphic design. Wow, Diane, you do a lot of stuff for Santa Cruz. Awesome. So thank you all so much to our panel for being here today. Again, we're so excited to hear directly from everyone on what their experiences have been and what they've been doing at their library. So just to share some results here from our poll. So what types of access points do you offer to patrons on their smartphones and tablets? As you can see, nearly everyone on the line here has a website, which is awesome. Mobile responsive website, about 40%. E-resources apps, so those are going to be your content branded apps like Overdrive, EBSCO, Zinio, for example, about 81%, and a library branded app, about 26% of the people on the line, and then we have the other category of 13%. So really different types of libraries approaching their mobile strategies in different ways, and we're excited to kind of explore some ideas today. So I think we'll just jump right into the first question. Oh, another access point, someone did chat in, I'm checking those questions, is Bluebeam. So beacons, we've got Bluetooth technology really taken off in the form of beacons. They're on everybody's radar. So great to hear that as well, that someone on the line is implementing that technology. Very tech-forward group. Great. And here's everyone's beautiful faces. Okay, so for our first question, and this is the exciting part. Question 1, what makes a good library mobile strategy? What factors are important in creating a mobile strategy? And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and have Diane maybe go ahead and jump in and start us off.
What makes a good mobile strategy, I think, is going to be, it's probably going to be different for every library and every community. A good strategy is going to respond to your community's needs and trends. If you live in an urban area that's totally blanketed by cell phone and broadband access, your mobile strategy is going to look really different than a library in a rural area that doesn't have any broadband and barely gets any cellular service. So, and then a good strategy is also going to align with the goals of the library in terms of your strategic plan or maybe your IT plan. You know, for instance, we had just completed our strategic plan when we started exploring mobile options, and some of the goals in the new plan had to do with self-service options and remote service and increasing awareness of our digital resources and making sure that the library or that the community valued the library as a relevant resource and you know, and continuing to innovate our services. So all of these different goals came into play as we were kind of shaping our expectations and planning a new mobile strategy. And then finally, a good strategy also has to consider the resources that are available to implement the strategy. You know, whether you have a dedicated IT staff or not, or you're under the IT of a city department, or you know, if you know the funding available, you know, the time that goes into the maintenance of a project like that. So I think those are some of the important things to consider.
Great, thank you so much, Diane. And great point. It really depends on, yeah, the type of library you have, the size of your library, and the type of community that you're serving. And you want to keep innovating. in regardless of the size of your community, because everyone really is using smartphones and tablets these days. But what does your strategy kind of look like? And now I'd like let's have Kareem go ahead and jump in on this question as well.
So I'm not sure if many libraries actually see getting a mobile app as a strategic move. It's most treated like a project, I think. But despite that, it's a powerful strategic move, I believe. What I think actually happens when the conversation about a mobile app starts is that we're immediately confronted with the question, do we need a mobile app? I mean, we have a website, right? I think that's the hard question most librarians and administrators struggle with. Library finances are tight, so it's a fair question. And it's not just libraries that ask this question. I think many businesses are asking the same question. It's a fair question, I think. To answer it, we kind of have to understand the trends in technology and trends in patron behavior, and then address those. So the trends in technology is irrefutable right now. It's one of those few times when the pattern is so clear that you can't really confuse it. There's a prediction out right now that by 2020 there will be 10 billion mobile devices out there. That's not very far from now. That's just 4 years or less. That also means that there's a significant number of those devices already out there in use today. That's a big shift in both the technology trend, and it's also an indicator of a big shift in user behavior that can't be ignored. So when we see that patrons are using library PCs less or using our Wi-Fi more and bringing their mobile devices more, it's a clear indication of this change. There's plenty of data that confirms how dedicated people are to their mobile devices. We're constantly on them, so we don't have to look very far. Second, libraries are investing a great deal of their material budget in digital subscriptions. In many cases, the cost per circ of these resources is much higher than traditional materials. Still, this is one of those areas where we actually see growth in usage, so we do it despite the cost. But to make the most of the investment, we need to complete the picture and allow patrons to easily access our digital subscriptions using their mobile devices. So that has to be part of that strategy. A mobile app simply bridges the gap and allows us to get more usage out of our digital subscriptions for each dollar spent. You'll have to look at your own numbers at your own library to actually see that, but I think the pattern is pretty clear also. So do we need a mobile app is the question. If our answer is no, then we shouldn't be surprised if our patrons start looking for sources other than libraries to get what they want on their mobile devices. With super fast 5G mobile networks, I don't know if you saw the news about that. Verizon is really kicking that off in a big way. With 5G mobile networks and some amazing new tech like Internet of Things, with those pucks and a whole bunch of other things like appliances and cars, and virtual reality just around the corner, the trend is not likely to slow down anytime soon. Mobile is here to stay. Ignoring it is taking a risk that may be too difficult to deal with later. So it's not so much as should you be playing it or should you have it as part of your strategy, is can you afford not to be playing, and what would happen to you if you don't have it as part of your strategy. So to me, the safe and smart strategy is to answer yes. The cost is small compared to the risk of not playing. Back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Kareem. Some really powerful statistics there on mobile device usage, and we're seeing the way that mobile devices are being used. I guess the way in which people want access to information is in a really simplified form. So how can you kind of present the library resources and content in a way that makes sense for patrons? Nearly 90% of mobile device users' time is spent in an app environment. So also just some really powerful statistics there. So thank you so much, Kareem, for touching on those. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question. What are some of the best practices for evaluating the mobile experience of patrons? how do you keep a pulse on trends? There's a lot of different things going on. Kareem, it sounds like you've got a really good handle on that research, but how does your library keep a handle on these things? How do you keep a pulse on these things? Do you have a committee? I mean, there's all sorts of different things that our libraries are doing right now. So I'd love for Evan to jump in on this question.
All right, yeah, as far as best practices, I would say you simply need to put yourself in the user's shoe. Look at the experience not from someone who works in the field, but as a user. I think about the apps I personally use all the time, what it is I think could be done better within those applications. So since the focus is on mobile, I think the big draw is that the interface is simple, clean, delivers results in a timely manner. You never want things to be unintuitive because even when you make the most easy-to-use thing, people still will need guidance for it. I also think about what it is that patrons look for when they want to access our website or mobile app. So to that end, we do surveys that assess what our patrons look for when they go to the website. So for example, their first destination is a catalog with our account. We want that mobile experience to focus on that. So feedback is key in that. As far as keeping a pulse on trends, I do two big things. I look at what the big developers are doing. I take note of updates on mobile applications like Facebook, Twitter, Google Music app, since I've used in its beta days. And you see a lot of trial and error with the continuing development of these apps. So for one example, there's a big negative in the Facebook app I've seen recently, at least in Android, where it's a big battery resource hog. So you want to avoid those mistakes but emulate what they're doing right. In addition to this, I also keep track of the trends via my news feed. I subscribe to a great deal of tech blogs, and since part of my job is finding content for social media posts, I take time during the days to scan through my feed and keep abreast of these trends. So that'd be about that.
Thanks, Evan. That was awesome. How about Christina at the same library? So how are you all kind of interacting, and how are you keeping a pulse on those trends?
Okay, yeah, great. Hi, everyone. So, for the Novi library, some ways to evaluate how the experience for the mobile app for our patrons. I feel, we relate a lot to them, so we know what the trends are for the mobile apps, and also a few of our departments, even our IT and our information services department, we do surveys for our patrons a few times a year to get their feedback on the mobile app and to see what needs to be improved, what they like about it, how often they use it, and that kind of determines future goals for us, to improve the app, or if we don't need to do anything, if they're satisfied with it. And as far as, keeping a pulse on future trends and current trends, by visiting, different websites and blogs, networking with other libraries, track trends in the library world, and also attend conferences, webinars, and workshops, which some might even be free of charge, which are very beneficial to us, and scan and engage in forums and discussion boards that can help us with the app. And looking at recent marketing trends, it's clear that mobile apps, they're all exploding in developed markets, have access between 4 and 8 different portable devices. That was a stat that I came across, and they're all connected to a mobile network. And mobile devices sales are unlikely to diminish, and app usage continues to rise. So I kind of just stay up with current trends and see what's relatable and what our library can benefit from.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christina. Yeah, 4 to 8 portable devices. I mean, that's amazing. It's like I feel like we are in the future. Like I don't know what imagine 20 years from now what this is going to look like. But we do know that mobile devices are certainly here to stay in some form. And so how can your library really be there, and what does that strategy look like? So thank you so much for letting us know a little bit about how you're keeping a pulse on those trends. I think it's really important, to look for those studies, to keep abreast of the best information that's out there in the latest research. Great. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the next question. And this is a hotly debated kind of question. So what is your perspective on responsive sites versus native apps? And just to put this in perspective a little bit. So a responsive site is when you launch your mobile device's web browser. So that's going to be like Safari or Internet Explorer, for example. Then you need to either run a search to find the library. So on Google, for example, you'd search for your library. Then you pull up your library's website. or you type in the URL, you type in the URL in the web browser, so like www.slcl.org, for example, and then the responsive site is going to pull up the website in a form that is kind of adapted to the mobile device display, so it's kind of a pared down version of the website in some instances. It can really mean a lot of different things. A native app is an app that's downloaded off of the app stores, so like Apple or Android, to name a couple. And that's going to be, you're searching the App Store, or there's a direct link to this app to be downloaded. So if you're using like the Facebook app or the Twitter app, it's kind of an app that's preloaded on your mobile device. It's kind of that one-tap access after that initial download. So this is a great question, kind of what is your perspective on responsive sites versus native apps? And I will go ahead and ask Diane to maybe jump in on this question.
I think it doesn't have to be a versus. When we first started doing our evaluation and looking at a mobile strategy, for us, it was like 2011, and for us, it did have to be an either or, one or the other. But really, at this point, we should all be looking at making responsive websites, and that's just, with some of the statistics that you guys talked about just a couple of minutes ago, more and more people are going to be looking and doing their research and just accessing information on their phones or on other mobile devices, and it just makes sense to keep moving in that direction. Now, having said that, it can be a really, really huge project. So if you're looking at it from a project management point of view, and you really, like we did, have to kind of make one decision one way or another, it really, again, kind of depends. You really have to think about what are people doing when they access your website. So we looked at our Google Analytics, and yeah, of course, people want really fast searching. Are they doing things when they're using their phone, when they access your site, differently than if they're sitting at a computer doing research? And I think that the answer to that is probably yes. We have a fantastic website with a lot of amazing local, unique content that you can't get anywhere else. And I don't necessarily think that that's the things that people are looking for when they're using our mobile app. They just want, they want to find a book. They want to get some, engaging content. They want to read a magazine real quick while they're in the doctor's office. They want to download an audiobook so that they can bring it with them on their jog. And a responsive site, is great because, no matter how people are accessing your site, they're going to have access to the whole of the content, hopefully in a way that pretty much fits to the device. But then in a native app, you've really got this this organized, planned palette of digital resources that are going to load much more quickly, be completely integrated into the app, and really present a more, I think a better user experience for people that are on the go. Guess I'll end it with that.
Thanks, Diane. Great perspective. Does this need to be a versus, or is it an and, right? So there's a lot of different ways to kind of tackle this. Kareem, I'd love for you to jump in on this question.
Well, very much like Diane. I'll say up front that I'm a big fan of responsive websites. Frankly, I can't see why any modern website would be built without responsive design. This just makes a lot of sense. It's the way it should have been, perhaps at the beginning. But responsive websites are not magic, and while great for adopting a website to work for different screen sizes, they're not mobile apps, and it's not right to expect them to perform the specific job that a mobile app does as well. And also there are realities in library websites that we have to take into account. I think a typical library website is made up of sections that the library created and sections that vendors control. For example, the library catalog is the heaviest used section of a website, but the code behind it is largely controlled by the library systems vendor, and it may or may not be a responsive design. So you have to look at that. Now, the IT team in the library does its best to make it all look like one website, but once seen on a mobile platform, parts of the website may not work. But say we make it work. Even though redesigning a website is expensive, say we make it work. The odds would still be significantly against satisfying patrons. Let me explain that. The data shows that patrons who use mobile devices prefer the app over the website. This is a widely accepted fact. The data shows that almost 90% of the time mobile users are using their apps, and only about 10% of the time they're using a website. I don't know about you, but it makes sense to me because I personally don't like dealing with all the normal aspects of a website on my phone. I don't want websites to download a bunch of things I don't want and use up my data plan. I don't want to type website addresses or try to press tiny links with my fingers. I'd rather have the quick and direct access to the functions I want using a mobile app. I want to press an icon and be there. The only time I use a browser, frankly, on my phone is when somebody sends me that link to that adorable kitten on YouTube. So for me, I think the best solution is a mobile app on my mobile device and a responsive website for my desktop and my laptop.
Thanks, Kareem. And I actually personally agree as well with that in my own device usage. So, Kareem, I feel like you're on a roll, so I'm going to have you take us into this next question here. How do you evaluate app vendors you partnered with on your mobile strategy? So, how do you go about doing this? I know this is a big question. There's a lot of different vendors out there. What are some best practices or some of your experiences in kind of working with some of these vendors?
Well, I came up with a list of 10 things to measure here or to evaluate the vendor on. First and foremost, I think experience in libraries matters. They must understand libraries, and they must really, and this is very important, they must really, really understand how library systems work. The integration of the mobile app to the library system is critical. If it's done poorly, it's just always going to be quirky or shabby or just not feel right. Also, on the same level, the market share that the vendor has in the library community is important. You want to be part of a large collective, so and that kind of drives the business for the mobile vendor. So the more of libraries they have under their care, the better. And also, I would look for them having libraries of various sizes, not just specializing in one category of libraries. I think number 3 is features and functions of the app. You want to look for it to see if it's complete and is it and also do they offer anything that is unique, something that you don't necessarily have on your website or couldn't do on your website. Can you do something with your mobile app that is unique? I think that matters a lot. 4, I had the look and feel of the app. Now, whether we like it or not, aesthetics matter. Patrons love things that look like they belong on their phone. So if their phone is an iPhone, then the app needs to look like an iPhone app. And if it's on an Android, it needs to look like an Android app. It needs to fit, and it has to look good. 5, does it integrate any third-party functions? So it shouldn't be just the library's catalog or directions and hours and things like that, but it should include other services that the library provides, like specifically digital content. 6, I had responsiveness to bugs and quirks. Nothing is more frustrating than a vendor that doesn't respond quickly to bugs and quirks, where you just have this bug reported and it just sits there for months on end. 7, uptime of the service. You want good quality, fast servers. and you want the vendor to have modern IT operations because you're relying on them to provide these services now, and they're a piece of the puzzle, so they need to be working all the time. And 8 is the performance of the service on a day-to-day basis. Is it slow? Is it sluggish? Or is it fast and responsive? That, to patrons, that really is a big decider as to whether they keep an app on their phone. And remember, they have the choice. They can delete the app anytime they want. So you want to perform continuously. 9, responsiveness to changes by the ILS vendor. Again, it would be very frustrating if your ILS vendor made a change or introduced a new feature and your mobile app is now, months behind integrating that into the application. And 10, responsiveness to new trends and new tech, both in libraries and importantly outside of libraries, because some of those new tech that happens outside of the libraries could eventually end up in libraries. So that's the 10 I had for you.
Thanks, Kareem. That was amazing, and I'm definitely asking for your notes after this presentation and perhaps some help with a white paper. You're awesome. Thanks, Kareem. Really helpful information there. So I think now let's go ahead and move into a poll. We want to hear from you. So what size is a community or a student population that your library serves? As you've heard from the experiences of our panelists, it's important to kind of find vendors that kind of could work with your type of library or that have diverse experiences in kind of working with a lot of different types of libraries and communities, because let's face it, the community size does impact some of the types of activities that you can do, like how big is your marketing team, how big is your tech team, and so this is an important question in kind of figuring out your mobile strategy. So we'll kind of let this poll go in progress, and while that's going on, we'll kind of leave it up for a minute here. And I'd like to jump into, we'll kind of leave the poll up, but question 5 is, how do you let patrons know you have an app, and what are some marketing best practices? So I'll have Christina, maybe while the poll's going on, I know a lot of people are answering still, but if you want to get into some best practices, that would be great.
Sure, yeah. I'm sure a lot of other libraries can relate to the marketing avenues that we have, but the best way for us, to market the app is through a variety of different promotional avenues. We market to patrons by using, obviously, our website, which is a great tool that gets a lot of visits each month and day. Our e-newsletter, and that's sent the first of every month, which is sent over to 2,000 subscribers. Social media, obviously, is a big outlet for us. We have, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and our Facebook and Twitter have over 1,500 followers, which is a very powerful outlet. And because of the giant, social networks such as these sites, they have become the most adopted mobile browser in terms of consumer time. So those are, with 1,500 followers for each. It's a great outlet for us to promote on there. And then, signage around the library, and we have a quarterly City of Novi magazine that we included in that, which is sent to thousands of residents and community members. And I think another, powerful tool, we always keep our staff informed so they can keep our patrons aware of any changes and, updates of the app, and just let them know that we have a mobile app. And word of mouth is also another powerful, outlet that we use. So I think if anyone, and I'm sure other libraries can relate to those marketing avenues, if anyone uses those, it's really successful to get the word out about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. And Christina, how would you classify your library? Small, medium, or large?
I would probably say large. As in Evan's bio, we see close to 56,000, people. So it's very large. We're in a large community with a lot of businesses. So we try to, reach every target audience so they're aware of, what we offer.
Great. And Evan, if you want to jump in as well, if there's anything else that you wanted to add to kind of what Christina was saying about how you all let the patrons know that you have an app and what are some of the best practices that you're using or would recommend.
Sure, yeah, she's covered a lot of them, but I think a big part is just to put yourself out in there into the community. And we have a good collaboration with the city, so we go to city events and we meet a lot of people in the community doing that. Of course, we have Christina, who's great at doing the marketing. We also promote in-house with flyers or table stands. We put QR codes linking the users to the app on there. We also have a local access channel we use to talk about the app. We also have a mobile version of our website where we can use that to kind of redirect people to download the app before you enter the full site. And we also promote the app at programs by taking a moment to discuss it. Since users are already savvy with other apps like Overdrive, we can pair them together. You just want to use every resource at your disposal. A lot of them are free, so we might as well just do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those additions. I would say those are a lot of best practices. And about how big is your marketing team or your team that's working on some of these outreach efforts? Christina or Evan?
I'm kind of the only, I'm the main contact for the marketing here at the library. But it is a team effort. We all try to, work together, but I'm the main contact here. So, which is fun.
Great. I mean, it sounds like you're very busy, and so it's really empowering to hear the amount that you all can get accomplished, with your team. So I think that hopefully kind of inspires some folks on the line, because we're seeing a lot of libraries use some major things, and social media is one of those great things too, that you can kind of get out there and manage and schedule out posts and do all sorts of things to really engage a really large group of people, word of mouth, flyers, all of that good stuff. So let me go ahead and share the poll results really quickly. So we have 52% of the people on the line identifying themselves as their communities as a smaller communities, 33% as medium-sized communities, and 14% as large communities. So especially for that small kind of community group or serving a small kind of student population, I think it's inspiring to hear what Christina is saying. And I love, Christina, if you're open to kind of connecting with some folks on the line, because I think you're doing a lot over there and holding down the fort. So I think that's really inspiring for, over half of the people that are on the line that are coming from probably having a team of one as well. So great. Let me go ahead and jump back into our presentation here. And I'm going to have Evan take us through this question. What impact is seen on digital resource usage after implementing an app?
So I think certain resources like Overdrive or Tutor.com or Mango have risen in usage since implementation of our app. I think what makes these specific resources ideal is how they integrate with the app and the fact that each of them has their own mobile application as well. So having one place, which is our app, where users can click once and have app-to-app connectivity limits the amount of time patrons use to reach these resources. Specifically, the Overdrive aspect of the app works well because you search for titles and download them without even leaving the Novi app. It isn't until you actually have to read the title that you have to leave that app. Also, building on the idea that the less clicks users have to make to get to a resource, the better is the app's ability to highlight these resources as specific channels on the app's homepage, instead of having them buried in a website where you have to click on online resources link, then on a language link to get to something like Mango. So in conclusion, I think that you can only see positive results for digital resources because it's a new avenue of access, it highlights specific resources, and it gives users a seamless app-to-app connection.
Thank you, Evan. Couldn't agree more. And to put some stats behind that, anecdotally, we're seeing, through our back-end stats, we're seeing that resource usage of digital resources is increasing by over 35%. And we've got some really good case studies that we'd love to share with you all. You can check them out on the BOOTC website. We publish them for everyone to check out. Also, that's through kind of our partners, and hearing an app as a channel is just a really an important access point to have, because patrons really do identify with the library's brand. They might not know what Overdrive is or what Hoopla is, for example, but they certainly know about your library and the name of your community. So just having that access point that's really recognizable to patrons is important. And then also, in addition to digital resource usage increasing, we're also seeing print circulation increasing as well, interestingly enough, by about 10% on average is what's being reported to us, and that we get from all of our libraries that we partner with. So just to put some stats out there for you all. So for question 7, how does a library app help you understand patrons' behaviors? And I'll have Diane jump in on this question.
Oh. Well, you know, we actually learned a lot about what devices the people in our community were using, and that was a really interesting thing for us to learn, because the devices that people are using in our community are really, really different than the national kind of metrics that you see coming out of Pew. And it just kind of confirmed for us some of the demographic understandings that we had about our community, you know, because Santa Cruz tends to be, you know, we've got higher educational achievement and higher income levels, so we've got a little bit wealthier of a community, and so the split between Android and iPhone for us is a little bit different. So that was just one kind of interesting thing. But then also, you know, looking at the analytics from our app usage has really told us a lot. I mean, it's told us just an amazing amount of information about exactly what people are doing with the library, from, you know, and it's of course mostly catalog search, you know, more and more of that. People are contacting us more, they're texting us more and finding it easier to request materials through us, and I've seen that number grow, of the number of emails that we get that come straight from the app to for purchase requests. And let's see, what else? Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that.
That's great. Thank you so much, Diane. And jumping into question 8, Diane, I'll also have you maybe touch on some of the challenges that you faced and tough decisions you all had to make at the Santa Cruz Public Library from the beginning of your mobile strategy to now. If you could share some of those experiences.
Sure. Well, from the very beginning, some of the biggest challenges and tough decisions really had to do with what was the best way to use the time of our IT staff. Or, you know, we have a dedicated IT staff. They are fantastic. They really understand, you know, library services, and they're really dedicated to public service. And they're, you know, IT is always understaffed, always has too many projects. And so, you know, we really had a lot of concerns about how much of our IT's time is going to go into, you know, implementing our mobile strategy. And that's actually a lot of what kind of pulled us towards partnering for a mobile app rather than redesigning our website to a mobile website. And another challenge was, you know, we had been using Evergreen during our first implementation, and you know, we had some problems with the Evergreen interface, and we had some inconsistent search results that actually implementation of the app turned out to provide us with better search results than the ones we were getting through our ILS. But, you know, one of the first things in our IT plan was to get a new ILS, and so we had to go through the entire integration process again with, you know, and then we selected Polaris, and that was a real challenge too. But, you know, I think that we all work together through that, and I mean, we have a fantastic product, and it works really well.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane. And going into this next poll question, so Diane, really great challenges and tough decisions that you faced there. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think everyone's kind of faced a very similar challenges and kind of limited resources and even budget cuts. So what do you do with the resources that you have? We have Christina, kind of team of one, holding down the fort in marketing. Diane, with really limited resources in IT, how can you partner with companies to get a solution out there that meets kind of users' expectations and drives search and usage of all those great digital resources that you're paying a lot of money for. So what I wanted to do now is just jump into a poll. So this is a great question, I think, for everyone, just to get you thinking too. What's the buzz among your library staff about having a library-branded app? So check all that apply. While we're going through that question, in the interest of time, I'm going to combine our last two questions at 9 and 10, which are, how do you gauge success of your mobile strategy, and what advice do the panelists have for everyone on the line for considering when considering a mobile app? So how do you gauge success of that strategy, and advice? And Kareem, I'd love for you to jump in on those two questions.
Okay, so I think the first thing that we want to do is, I think the most obvious one is, did we meet our target for downloads of the app? That's a big indicator as to how many people actually are likely using your app. And then, are the majority of reviews of our mobile app positive? I think that also matters, because I think people look at those reviews before deciding whether they like something or not, or whether they want to bother downloading it. Did we see an increase in circulation? Here we may have to actually look at specific genre and media types for increases. It may not be across the board, but it could be across the board. One interesting use I want to share that people with mobile apps are doing is that the large print users who they've learned to use their e-readers, for example, for the digital content, to increase the size of the print so that they can read normal books. I think this is positive for them, but it's also, I think, in some ways positive for libraries. And were we able to engage our target demographics? I'm sure in the strategy you're going to have certain demographics that you're going to want to specifically target with your mobile app, and get out there and use outreach and other mechanisms to actually get them involved. But also, you know, a mobile app can be also very useful in getting people who had left the library to come back to the library. So you might want to use that as part of a marketing method. Were we able to, did we increase the number of active users of the library? Libraries measure active users typically, and I think the more active users, the better. And if your mobile app contributed to that, you want to know. Did the usage of our digital subscriptions increase? This one is almost a sure bet because it kind of feeds the other. So you want to look at that too. With all of these, I want to note that with all of these, we're not looking for big changes. Okay, we're after a steady pattern of positive numbers. We want it to be steadily and growing in a positive incline. So. That's that. The advice part, as to if you're considering a mobile app, my advice is get going and make it sooner than later. It takes time to build an install base, so the sooner we get started, the better. If we wait too long, our patrons will find other resources to get what they want. As we all know, trying to get patrons back is a lot harder than keeping the ones we have. Also, when the next killer feature is introduced, and there will be plenty of those, we will have an install base ready to take advantage of it. Oh, and one last thing. I wouldn't stop with one app. We may need more than one app to complete the picture. For example, mobile printing is a service that patrons love, so we would consider adding that there as well. And you can use patrons coming in to get the mobile printing app as an opportunity to also entice them to download your library mobile app.
Thank you so much, Kareem, and really interesting point there. Is it one app? Is it multiple apps? What does that look like, and what are the purposes for those different apps? I actually just read an article this morning about kind of an early literacy app as well. So kind of this idea that there should be really focused and targeted apps in addition to kind of maybe a general app as well. So really great question to pose there. for each of your libraries. In terms of the poll question here. So what's the buzz among your library staff? We have a lot of people on the line with apps, considering apps, don't know where to begin with their mobile strategy, not sure if they have the time, and they're not sure if their library may be big enough for the app. So I think we've touched on a lot of these questions today. But I think kind of, Christina, if you wanted to jump in and talk about maybe gauging success and also what advice you would consider also in light of some of those poll responses, I think that would be great.
So as far as gauging success of the, the mobile strategy in the app, kind of like I referred in the question earlier, just, holding surveys to get feedback from our patrons and doing that a few times a year. And we even have, volunteers hand out the surveys, right at the door and have a table set up just so we can get, the more feedback, the better. And, every month our IT department tracks the statistics and those are added, to our library board packet so we can track that each month and how many, we measure traffic and how many downloads and what page is visited most from the app. So we keep that in the packet and every month we get to see the numbers and if they're improving or decreasing, and that's kind of a way we can set goals for ourselves to see what we can do or what we might not need to do anything if the numbers are staying steady and improving. So yeah, so that's kind of our main thing we do.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina. And I know we are so short on time. We've got 4 amazing panelists that I want to thank so much for their time. Diane, Christina, Kareem, and Evan, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I know there's just so much more that you all have to share with us, but I did want to thank everyone for attending the webinar today. We will have a recording of this webinar available for distribution to your teams. I feel like we're cutting this really great and important conversation short. So certainly we will have more panels to come in the future and hopefully be sharing out some of these ideas from the panelists with you all in addition to that recorded link. So anything that maybe wasn't covered by our panelists that was maybe top of mind for them, we'd love to get that information out to all of you. So thank you so much. We do have another webinar coming up here called Mix It Up, Spaces, Programs, and Outreach that engage teens on, from Demco Ideas and Inspiration. I want to thank the Demco team so much for hosting us today with this really awesome panel. A special shout out to Mary Casey, Boopsy's Director of Marketing, for helping put everything together as well. I hope you all have a really wonderful day. We'll also be following up via email with answers to all of your great questions, and we can, connect you in with some of the panelists as well if you have specific questions for them also. I'm sure they'd be happy to connect with you all. So thank you so much again for attending. Again, I know we have so much to share, but I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I hope that this webinar, How Library App Improves the Patron Experience, was really informative and inspiring for you all today. So thank you all so much.